All right, welcome everyone to Aligning with Success. It is July 15th. Wow. I guess we're past the midway of the year. July, for whatever reason, always hits me. I think this is the time of the year that we start working for ourselves. Until now, we've been paying the government. So the lion's share of all the money we earn is paid in taxes, and that's up to sometime in July. I think maybe end of July, something like that. So here we are, entrepreneurs, now earning our own money to spend the rest of this year. But that is the topic of our discussion. I invited Dave Rolfe to join us tonight. He's, as you know, Royal Diamond. I think Dave is the only person who registered in NICAN before I did, here on not only on this call, but in NICAN North America. And we have had, just to give you a bit of a framework here for this conversation, Dave and I and a few others were part of a group called the NICAN Field Leadership Executive, which was asked of us to represent another larger segment of the major stakeholders in NICAN, meaning those who are platinum and above, were invited to previous conference calls pertaining to the evolution of NICAN in these times. And we were given the authority to represent that group with NICAN Corporate. And since then, every Tuesday, sometimes twice a week, we've met with NICAN Corporate. And that involves Luis Kasuga, our CEO, and his right hands. Sometimes it's tech, sometimes it's marketing. Usually it's marketing. But to have a constant dialogue with NICAN in the development of innovations and shifts and changes, and both for them to share and get feedback from us what they're doing, and for us to share and give them suggestions to what we need in the field going forward to better represent the business and the vision of the business that we have. Anyway, as it's evolved, and you've seen a lot of those innovations, a lot of stuff that you see, the shifts, the changes, the incentives, you name it. There's a lot of different things that we've participated in those conversations with NICAN. But Dave and I have also had our tete-a-tetes and our disagreements, which are often quite challenging because we're both pretty headstrong and have kind of a logic and strategic way of thinking. But recently, we really started to peel a lot of the layers back and made a decision that we were going to do some analysis on a different level. And through that analysis, start to delineate what are the things that are working, or the things that were very important in the execution and development of NICAN in the early days that allowed our numbers to grow to a point in time of 600 million in sales in North America. And so we've been, both of us, strategically looking at, stripping away in principle, what are the things that were key ingredients, if you will. If you're making a cake, you want to make that cake duplicatable, do it again. You got to figure out what was unique about that, other than the fact that it was a unique moment in time. You know, we can't replace history. We can't take away the fact that the internet has played a significant role in how our business has changed. And then, of course, the product line and management, the directives of management, and so forth. All of those are factors. But if we strip it all down to what were the key essentials when our business was in a momentum curve, there are some things that, regardless of how big you are absolutely necessary in the process of building a network marketing business. So, Dave, I'm going to invite you to jump in at any point in time, but we had a conversation recently that actually kind of got my jets going. I got pretty excited, and I think Dave got pretty excited too. And that's because we started talking a common language. We started aligning with common ideas. And, you know, there's a saying, where two or more are gathered. things can really happen. And actually, if I go back far enough in time, in our Nikken experience, that's kind of how everything got started. It was a tete-a-tete with a couple of key players, and then that grew to a few key players, and that grew to a handful of key players, and eventually a few dozen key players. And so this core nucleus of people, this core group of people who had some agreements and alliances and allegiances, formed what became a group think tank and a group arm, or a marketing effort that essentially evolved into the field leadership organization we all love and remember, Team Diamond, which spearheaded the momentous growth. So
I jump in here for a second.
Yeah, please do.
Now, in support of what Michael just said, as you know, maybe 4 weeks ago, we were on a call and we brought up the thought process, the idea that, and just for information, that we're not attracting attention like we have attracted attention, and what follows attention is money, growth, expansion, all of those wonderful things. And so I embarked on one aspect of gathering information, held a couple of meetings, asked questions, got information. And then Michael and I then reviewed that data. And then last week we were talking about, well, what happened at what time? And what was there that's not here today, that could be here today, that has really no bearing on time, but simply is an aspect of what we do. And one of the things that I did many years ago was I did analysis of performance, and this is Nikken from 1990 to 2010. And I have every gold, every platinum, every diamond, every royal diamond, when they went to those levels, the size of the business, the volume of the company, number of silvers. I tracked all that information because I liked it, and so on and so forth, and it was very, very interesting. So when Michael and I started talking, we said, well, we need a game. And so we talked about, well, we've got to, get more people at rank. We got to play the diamond game or the royal diamond game. And then we took a look at and said, well, where are we right now? So we estimate that we're somewhere between $35 to $50 million, including North America and the United States. And then I said, well, let's go back in time. When were we at that kind of a number? And we were at that kind of a number in 1993. We were at about $36 million. We remained the same for 1994. We did another 36 million. We went to 50 million in 1994, and then we went to 150 million in 1995. And so in looking at those numbers, we said, well, why don't we play, and I don't know how this came about. It was somebody's thought, and said, well, why don't we go from 50, let's go to 100, let's play the $100 million game here.
Well, actually, that was Dave's idea. Idea.
So I said, go ahead.
Well, no, I think I first resisted because I thought, well, that's not big enough of an idea, or like the concept was monetary and so forth. But actually, he kind of zoomed in on it. And then I got back into the history and thought, you know what? Yeah, that is kind of how we grew this thing. We set targets, and the expectation was that we would be on this curve. That's how I even had my PowerPoint back then, which I think it was PageMaker or whatever we made slides in. And we had that projection. We had a projected curve, even though we were at 40, then there was this projection, and we were projecting Nikken to climb. So it wasn't that we did that. It wasn't there yet. We just projected it. We were imagining it to be that, even though we hadn't done it yet.
Now, one of the key factors at that time, and this was a key element that helped that growth, was the support team, was the support idea, was the support mechanism, was the And again, back then at that time, I had left the business. I came back in 1994. I was a lowly, I think I was getting paid as silver at that time. My organization completely fell apart. I had to rebuild it all over again. But what I had at that time was a support system that I could utilize to build the business. What I had to focus on was I had to bring people to the picnic.
Yeah, let me pause you for a second because
Yeah.
when those sales, I launched Niken in Canada in 92. And so, as Dave pointed out, the sales were kind of flat for 2 years following. Even though Canada came on stream, it was still sort of like this. And right up until like late 94, maybe early 95, we were a lot of different kingdoms. There was all these different kingdoms in Niken, meaning, leaders, platinums, diamonds, mostly just platinums and diamonds, scattered all over the place. And we were doing our own thing, growing our business as we knew how, collaborating every now and then at a Niken convention or on a national call. But there wasn't a choreographed or coordinated team effort. It was like individual teams, sort of our own personal ambitions driving our behavior. And it wasn't a collective ambition. And it wasn't until late in the later part of 94, early 95, that a small group got together and started to talk about, rather than all of us flying all over the place doing our thing, why don't we converge and get everybody together? And that was the beginning of what was first called Magnetic Millionaires, and then that evolved into Team Diamond. But the key was, suddenly it wasn't about individual kingdoms doing their own thing in the context of a Niken opportunity. It was now a collaboration of leaders, stakeholders, ambitious stakeholders, but working together to create a much bigger impression. And that was really the foundation in the beginning of what became our momentum curve.
Now, to add to that, Michael, this is very apparent in corporate America, in the business world. The success of the group allows the success of the individual. So if the group is the group was identified as, that time it started out to be Magnetic Millionaires, then Team Diamond. That group marched all over the country. As the company expanded, we went to the UK, Canada, UK, Mexico, other countries around. But the group went, and the group brought with it credibility, stability. I remember there, I've got in this one of my books, there were like 600 wellness previews going on every week, and they were all done the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you sent somebody to Iowa, or you sent them to Victoria, if you sent them to Montreal, or you sent them to Florida, they'd get the same presentation. So we created an identity, we created a method and a system that people could plug and play. And now, where this, to me, in the statistics that I kept, this started to fall apart after 2000, after the internet came out and some leadership left, and Tom bought the company and took it away from Isamu Masuda. Kendall Cho was the president. There were a lot of things that went on at that time, but again, the field separated. Instead of being the group, it went into individual, and that's where we've ended up. And what Michael and I saw was that, well, what if we were to put this back together again?
Like Humpty Dumpty.
And what if we were to create the group? Now, but what does the group need? Well, the interesting thing, it's about the purpose to make the group the best the group can be. And in that process, the individual can catch the ride.
In
And the
fact,
individual,
the motto for Team Diamond was one team, one dream.
yeah.
And so the idea that, and by the way, just from a personal experience, I was a diamond. I mean, I was doing all right as a diamond, and but being a part of a team, like even the leaders need to be led or need to feel like they've got some air under their wings, you know, that there's some there's this thing that happens when geese, for instance, when they fly together in formation. It takes a little bit of the load off of the lead geese and then goose. So when that goose gets a little tired, they fly back into formation, somebody else takes up. But it's the most efficient thing that they can do to conserve energy and fly. And that was kind of what happened. In fact, one of the things that we created for Niken here in Canada was that they still have in the office was the three geese flying in formation representing Canada, USA, and Mexico at the time. But the point being that when Team Diamond or the group consciousness started to work together, it gave a little bit of a reprieve for those of us who were flying all over the place, spinning all the plates that we could keep spinning. And all of a sudden, everything got easier, more focused, and the plates started spinning themselves. And then there were other plates joining in. So it was a very necessary experience. And from what we're looking at today, what's lacking today is this group experience. We've tried kind of limping along with our own individual activities. I have this call, for instance, and Dave has a call, and Niken has their calls, and everybody's kind of doing their thing. We're kind of right now like the little kingdoms, and everybody trying to keep the plates spinning. But if we actually pulled together and started working very collaboratively with some objectives in mind, the idea that we are where we are, and you can decide for yourself if your best days are ahead of you or behind you. That's a personal decision. There's no
Can I throw in some numbers here, Michael?
Yeah, please.
In 1994, or let's go back to 93, we produced 199 silvers. We produced 11 golds, and we produced 5 platinums and 3 diamonds and 1 royal diamond. That was 1993. In 94, we jumped to 610 silvers. We'll just stay with the silvers now because this is the most important. In 1995, we jumped to 1,356 silvers. And in 1996, we dropped a little bit down to 980. And then in 1997, we jumped up to 1,488. And in 1995, we jumped up to 4,624 silvers. And here's the peak, 1999, 5,670 silvers. And these are silvers that are doing 20,000 points minimum. Some were doing, you know, because they would take 5, 6, 7, 8 months to get there. There was a lot of volume, but just the magnitude of the numbers. But it started small. And it started as a group, and it started as a team, and it had a mission, and the mission was one for all for one, Three Musketeers kind of a thing. And I was able to catch that wave like many other people were able to catch that wave. And they didn't have to rely on me. They could rely on a support system that, you know, we had the Team Diamond events, we had the Maui event, we had the company leadership event, but we also had a bunch of individuals that had their own sections going, and it was really a neat collaboration. So Michael and I got very excited about this. And we're going to have a talk tomorrow with the boss. And the boss needs to do some things to help us out here. But I think what we wanted to accomplish tonight is kind of like, okay, does anybody else interested? Would anybody like to play with us?
So the first thing that we put on the table was quantifiably, let's go from 50 to 100 million. I mean, that's what companies do. I don't know if you guys know the story of Apple, but Apple was at one point 3 months away from bankruptcy. Apple Computers almost went out of business. And of course, today, if you had shares in Apple and you had bought that time when they were about 3 months away from going bankrupt, today you would be a multi-millionaire. So companies go through ups and downs. They go through expansion, contraction all the time. They're usually economic factors. There's movements in technology, communications. There's so many things that influence politics. Things influence the ebbs and flows of business and corporations. Nothing is ever constant growth. It's just not conceivable. That actually defies logic and physics. So the flows are common. But the interesting thing is, if we're going from 50 to 100 million, who are we going from 50 to 100 million with? Because when I went from 50, or I guess when I got started, we were at 40. When we went from 40 to 600 million, that was the group of people that I locked arms with and ran with and so forth. And that was a generation primarily comprised of ourselves in our age demographic as well. And remember, if you remember, we used to talk about our market penetration being less than 2%. So if in fact everybody we ran with represents less than 2% of the market, our market being our demographic, our age group, if less than 2% of our age group was touched, that leaves 98% of our age group that we're right now at still not in NICAN or know about NICAN. But what about all the age groups that have come up since? When I started NICAN, I was 28. And now I'm 33 years into this, 33 and a half years into this. That means there are people who were born who are now 33 years old when I joined. They're now 33 years old that weren't even on the planet when I got started. How many of those are there in North America? If we look at the actual number of people that have not learned about NICAN because they were not in our space, they were not in our demographic, they were not in our networks. How many of those people don't know about NICAN and everything that this can be? So if we're going from 50 to 100 million with that bunch of people, plus the 98% we still haven't talked to in our age demographic, you can see how 50 million to 100 million is a drop in the bucket. It's absolutely nothing in comparison to what we could be doing. So it's not even a question in my mind of, is it possible to go from 50 to 100? That's not even a thing. It's so small, but yet, if you really think about it, it's quite an achievement taking us from 50 to 100 million in the next year. But what would that look like for you if you were a big part of that 50 to 100 million, like I was in 1992, 93, 94, 95, going from 40 million to 50 million to 100 million and so forth, the numbers that Dave just published. So that's what's got me excited is because I know the market penetration is non-existent. I know the numbers are a matter of decision. It's choice. The products are needed. It's not like our products have become redundant or unnecessary in the last 33 years. Quite the opposite. Our products have become even more relevant. And not only that, but we've become even more capable of representing what the value of the value proposition of the products are, especially with the new biomimicry terminology, which is now a thing and it's becoming known. So we don't have a problem making a case for why we should exist as far as the products are concerned. What we now need to have is we now need to make a case for how the business can be a going concern. And this is where what our conversation started with when we started talking about what's the structure, because what made it possible for most people in the late 90s to catch the wave was there was an infrastructure. There were things happening that people could plug into and more being bootstrapped on top right up to those big events that many of you didn't actually have to create. So you just plugged in. So the key.
Now, can
key,
I add
add
on to here, Michael? One of the things that when I first started, the highest rank was platinum. And the leadership bonus at that time was 5%, 3%, and 1%. You got 3 generations below you, 5%, 3%, 1%. So what happened in support of the activity was change. And the change was geared to support, encourage, and stimulate what the marketplace needed at that time. So we added Diamond, and I think Diamond came in late 1991. We went from the 5-3-1 to 5-4-3-2-1. Then we went to the 5-5-5-5-5, and then we went to the 6-6-6-6-6. So we know today that we got to do some tweaking. And we've had these conversations, and we need to get that on the table. But along with the tweaking, we need to have the idea that we're going to go for this. And if we go for it, and we can identify the participants, and we can lay out the plan, and we can do all of that kind of good stuff, then I think we can add to that and to what Michael was just talking about.
And given what we're talking about here, then the plug and play, the idea that right now, if we look at the Niken Connect, there's a lot of activity on the Niken Connect. A new person might be confused by. One of the things that we're striving to do is to actually filter it so that it'll be color coded, so a new person would know what events are relevant to them and so forth. But even further than that, that's sort of dealing with what we have. But to deal with what we want to have, to go from 50 to 100 million, what are we going to need? We're going to need structure. There needs to be a very clear, identifiable structure. And that's what Team Diamond did. When we met in those early stages to create a Team Diamond, one of the first things we did was we created a tools company. We actually merged two into one. And then there were very specific tools that we promoted. We all used the same tools to communicate what was the system. In other words, the products are the products, but the business of this business needed structure. It needed symmetry, it needed structure, it needed methodology, and it needed training. And all of those pieces were put together under the umbrella, sort of rubber stamped by the group of people that were leading the charge, so that we had a common language. We set up a common expectation. For instance, one of the things we were talking about was when somebody joined the business, you bought a demo pack and a career pack. How many of you were talking about that back in the day? Demo pack, career pack. Yeah. When I joined Niken, there was no such thing. But there was a systematic approach. We had a good, better, best option. My team in Canada created a good, better, best. And then that sort of translated over into Niken and whatnot. Eventually, we still, like, for instance, if I go into the What It Takes brochure, it talks about good, better, it talks about slow, medium, fast, or good, better, best. Same thing. In other words,
we never had a discount until 2010.
Yeah, we didn't need discounts to motivate people to buy, because
Yeah.
we weren't buyers, we were sellers. And buying was just part of the thing that you do if you're committed to promoting. So we sort of switched hats in all this time frame. We took off the seller's hat, put on the buyer's hat, and now we're always looking for the next deal. And Niken, of course, is feeding us that, because that's what they see on the receiving end. They see buyers, and so they treat us like buyers. And yet what we want to be, where the money is at, we were talking about this today, the sales profession, the number one money-making profession is the sales profession, but it's also got the number one rate of, what is it, Dave?
They leave the fastest turnover.
Yeah, the turnover, that's it, turnover. So it's sort of a double-edged sword, the sales profession, but it is the profession that generates the most money. And right now, most people are looking to bootstrap their careers with something on the side, some type of a gig, some type of a side hustle, because they need to make money. And that means they need to sell something that they're not currently selling. So the sweeter we can make this offer and the simpler we can make this offer, the more likely people will take us up on it, which means systematize, which means have not only a system, but a structure, where you know what event is what and when it happens and who to bring to it and so forth. The advantage that we have today that we didn't have back in the 90s is the internet. It's both our it's both, you know, it's a double-edged sword as well. It both helps us and hinders us. We no longer control the information. People can just, you know, you say the word Nikken and they got a dossier on your phone in 3 seconds. So we don't control the information. That's the downside. But the upside is we can communicate faster the information. We can interface visually, which we couldn't do before. Before we used to only just do three-way calls by phone. So we now have the means, but we have not worked together as a team in a system with an objective to be part of a movement and participate in the growth and the development of that movement and the benefits of that movement. We haven't done that. We have sort of always been behind the 8 ball, trying to keep it together, so to speak. And you know, my mentor Bob used to always say, "You're either going up or you're coming down. There's nothing in between. You're either moving up or you're going down." And so when you're playing from the behind the scenes, when you're trying to hold things together, you're coming down. That's not how you grow a business. You grow a business by setting objectives. You grow a business by growing the business, looking for the next thing.
Now, as part of what was just said by Michael, the object of the game is for us to create the structure, the system, the support that attracts attention for others. So again, we hear in our industry so many times leverage. So I've been in network marketing since 1975, heard that statement, saw people do it. And then I realized, and so many people have heard this, it's not so much what I do, but it's who I bring in what they do. And you know, you've heard my saying, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So if we've got a mousetrap, and I'm saying that in a polite, nice way that people like to look at and want to be involved with, then they take it. You all know Julie Tara. Julie Tara was in my organization. She did $285 million worth of business. She did that. I supported the heck out of her, obviously, but it was her that created. I had others that did more and others that did less, but you get the message that that's what we want to attract. But right now, what we're not doing is we're not attracting because we're going this way or we're going that way, or it's product driven, or it's you know, this focus, that focus, this personality, that personality, et cetera, et cetera. And the strength of the group is then the strength of the individual. And that's what we want to put back is the group, create the identity, create the purpose, and give people a purpose. And of course, you've all heard us talk about one of the things that we want to get to the company about is the shared pool concept. And both Michael and I love this idea. We talk about it all the time, but it's a way that if the group expands and grows, then the individual can share in more. And it's not just relying on the individual, it's relying on the success of the group. I didn't build Nikken to where it got to me, and it was the team. It was other people. We were all, yeah. So that's what we want to redo again. Anyway.
Well, we had two great examples yesterday of what a difference a good team can make. You know, some of you may have watched the Euro Cup and the one in Latin America as well, the North American one. Two victors, Spain for Euro, and Argentina won the cup over here in the Latin American market. And what does that take? It takes teamwork. There's no individual effort that can make a team win a cup. It doesn't work that way. That's never been the case. It's never going to be the case. It's a collaboration. It's a team. In fact, Messi, who's one of one of the world's greatest ever soccer players, was injured. He wasn't able to finish the game. And he was devastated. He was on the sidelines. He couldn't do anything. But the team won anyway, because it was a team effort. It was never going to be about him. He was just a contributor to getting them as far as they got. So the point is, we're never going to get where we want to go until we come together and make a commitment and an agreement to get there together, to go there. And then that's going to start something. That's going to start your engines. That's going to create a space in the ethers that says this company is growing and needs bodies, people to grow with. It's going to be put out there and it's going to be multiplied through our intention. It's one thing for one person to have an intention. It's another thing for group intention. It's so much more powerful when a group comes together and commits and has an intention. And then, of course, within the context of this growth, this 50 to 100 million, we all win. There's something in it for everyone. And then we also, as Dave was talking about, we're going to go to bat and see if we can tweak some things, especially with this idea of a pool of some kind, because I really like that idea. I've always liked that idea, that however you contribute to the whole, therefore you participate in the whole. I just think that there's something about that makes sense. It's kind of, I don't know, it's the way nature operates. So we wanted to share this with you because we're kind of excited about this. To have somebody to work with, to have a group to work with, to be part of a group and the success of that group makes a difference. It makes all the difference in the world. And if we don't do it, well, we already know what that looks like. Well, what if we did do it? What if we did the thing that made us the best we were at in the past is team. We assembled all the pieces over time, but what initiated everything was the team, the identity of a team, the fact that we work together as part of a something. So yeah, that's kind of what we wanted to share with you guys tonight. Any thoughts out there?
Yes, what can we do as the listeners at the moment, this moment, Michael? Give us some ideas. How do we communicate with you guys? How do we communicate with corporate? What do we do?
Well, at this point in time, we don't all need to be communicating with corporate. We've already got access to corporate in a very controlled environment. So it's the idea of formulating and creating an identity, a group think, a group consciousness, a group awareness. What we need to piece together is the structure. And I'll give an example of what I'm talking about before I answer any other questions. For us to have generational growth, I'm going to focus on I'm going to pin my thing. There's a lot of stuff here. I usually draw this out a little bit at a time, but let's just start with this. Let's say that's you or somebody brand new on your team, somebody who hasn't even joined yet. In order for generational growth to happen, which is the key to network marketing, is generational growth, not direct sales. Direct sales is direct sales. That's basically a retail opportunity. That's basically trading time for money. That's never going to create a lifestyle, not the kind of lifestyle that we're talking about. And while that might appease the authorities and so forth, that, hey, this company is really into direct sales, that's not going to turn my crank whatsoever. And that sure wouldn't have gotten me a Niken. And therefore wouldn't have built the $1 billion in sales that I'm part of, for sure. So what gets people excited and attracted is something bigger than themselves. And it has to be at the kernel of an idea. The very second they see what they see, it has to be built into what they see. So they have to see something that projects the idea of generational growth, something that projects the idea that they get something started that continues. So the idea of generational growth is what this is all about and what all our systems and all our tweaking is about. So let's just look at this physically. That person joins, And you know, and I know that in their first 90 days, they got the best chance of touching their warm market. And warm market is really where this business is built still. So if we can't exercise or create an idea where this is the methodology, you got 90 days to penetrate your warm market. Let's say that was it. So we know in their first 90 days, they're going to go through this blast like most of us did. They're excited. And we need to obviously give them the means, the mechanism to communicate to that group of people. So let's just say we have back in the day, it was a video or an audio or whatever it was something. There was some means by which people were able to share NECANN and get other people excited, which may have included some demos and whatnot. But the point is, they do a blast of activity. And from that, they have some customers, they have some distributors. And from those distributors, some show up and want to play the game. And they identify themselves because they get the information they need and they react to that information accordingly. So that's the star here. So there's an event or some series of events that causes that person to self-identify. Now, what does that person do? They blast. They do a 90-day blast because that's what they're shown. That's what they understand. That's what they replicate. So now they go through their 90-day blast, out of which comes some customers, some distributors, and some possible leaders. That person self-identifies. What does that person do? Exactly what they've been shown. So they've been shown that this is what they do, and they've agreed to do that because they see the big picture and the infrastructure that's there to support them, which I'll talk about in a second. So they go ahead and they do their blast. And out of that eventually comes some customers, some distributors, and a potential leader. Now what we have is 3 generations within a span of 3 phases, 3 cycles. Okay, that could be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. That could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Depends on who you're with, who you're working with. But the point is, there's phases and there's duplication. Now over here, these axes represent timeline. We're going down in time. So this is, if I turn this way, this is the start, and this is weeks. So in a matter of 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is, there's a number of events that take place that allows this recruiting to happen. So right now, if I said, what is your series of events that you're plugged into religiously and bringing people to for launching? You probably pick and choose because it's not systematized or you haven't locked it in as a system yet. But let's say we all agree, this is the training, this is what we're doing. And so now we have an event series that is designed by design to invite guests to learn about the opportunity. The products are part of the opportunity, but they're not learning about the products. They're learning about the opportunity with the products involved as the basis of the opportunity. So those series of events happen to get that blast to happen. Let's say 4 weeks of events. I'll give you an example. When I launched, anybody that I sponsored, we would do no less than 3 in-home meetings. No less than 3 in-home meetings, either in a week or a month. That was the goal, usually in the first 3 weeks. And then what we would do is we would tie into some major event, or we would create a major event where I'd bring in a guest speaker. And this was the lock-in event. This was to figure out who that star was. The lock-in event would be the thing that identified the kernel of popcorn that pops. So that was a system because it would repeat the next month and it would repeat the next month. But everybody who was being taught how to plug into the system, because then those popcorns that pop, they want to get busy doing what? Bringing people through the system, locking them in, finding their person, and duplicating. So this stream of events is organized. It has purpose. It has functionality. It's very specific. It has a purpose to enroll a person into the business and then to help identify the group of people that have enrolled as the ones who are going to launch the next in the next cycle. So that was the system that Team Diamond was working on. That was the system that most of us had incorporated into our business. And then once every 3 months, that third month was the big Team Diamond event. It was a major event. NICAN currently has a rendition of this with the weekly events, but they're not used properly yet. I'm doing tomorrow night. I'm wondering if I'm going to be speaking to the choir tomorrow night, or if there's actually going to be a guest in the audience. I don't know. At this point in time, I don't know. But I should know. I should know if I'm going to be speaking that there are guests. Otherwise, why am I speaking about an opportunity meeting for people who are already in the opportunity? Duh. That doesn't sound like a logical business move. So when we get on this path together, there won't be any question in my mind or yours as to whether or not there's a guest present, because you're going to know exactly why that meeting is happening and who is for and what's going to happen in that meeting. And you're going to want what's happening in that meeting to happen for that guest to get excited. The language we speak, the vision we paint, the 50 to 100 million, the opportunity associated with that, the benefits, etc. That's what we're talking about. And so the where was I? The Team Diamond event was the quarterly event. NICAN currently has 2 monthly events, which are the Seiko Kai, and then there's the Master Day. Well, those are the current substitute for what it is that we would do in the field. And as good as it is, it's still not what we need it to be in order to drive this particular activity. So there's going to be some tweaking there so that those events start to look like what we need them to look like to do what it is that we need them to do, which is to identify the next seed of launch partners. And so think about it. Whenever you had somebody show up at one of those big events, what would happen? They'd get all fired up. They couldn't wait to get home and get started. And they probably didn't even know what they're going to do yet, but they were just so excited. It was easy to direct somebody who was excited into doing that initial activity, which was maybe setting up some in-homes or whatever. So we're going to see the in-homes start to show up again. We're going to see the local events start to happen again, because it's going to happen out of a need. Not that we're forcing it on anybody. It's just going to be a simple need. I need to make this happen. I got somebody who's talking to me about launching in August. Well, what does that mean? It means we're going to have a series of events. Well, a series of events in the month of August so that they can make this happen. A blast of activity, which results in customers, consultants, and the potential of some leaders who will then in the next month do their own blast. So this is the structure that we're talking about putting together, where and in collaboration with NICAN, because they're going to have to back off on some of the stuff they're doing, or maybe ramp up on some of the stuff they're doing in order to get the agenda so it's aligned with this, so that you're going to see the duplication happening. Whatever tools we need, we're going to have to sort out, most of which we already have. We just need to show you how to use them in this context. So that's kind of how it looks. And this is how it started. I mean, I was a diamond, I didn't even have a goal to go Royal Diamond. It wasn't until I actually had a goal to go Royal Diamond that I even sat down to do my own plan. And so it always starts with a goal, a vision, a moment in time, a date with destiny, if you will. Barbara.
Mike, has there ever been any thought about bringing back the flip chart? Because that gave consistency to the in-homes. And when Luis came to Toronto in October of 22, and I had a private conversation with him, I mentioned the flip chart to him. I said, something small enough that could fit in a gent's pocket or a lady's purse, that if you met somebody,
You mean this?
No,
This is a flip chart.
Okay, I don't have one.
Okay.
I admit, I don't have one. But I was thinking of the other flip chart that covered the the business, you know, and the breakdown of Nikan and so forth.
Right. So,
And he said, you know, that's something that could definitely be considered. Well, then thinking back to when I started in Nikan, and I came across this today as I'm going through my office. I'll turn off my background so you can see it. Sorry for the delay.
yeah. Mastermind chart.
Yeah, and that's what got my team excited, because each one of them had one. And they were filling it out. And when we had our wellness previews, we sometimes started with the business preview for people that were already consultants. And then we had the wellness preview afterwards.
Mhm.
And because each person had one of these charts, they got excited when they were seeing each other filling in the blanks, and they were seeing their organizations, their teams growing.
Barbara, that was a business agenda. So what people were being exposed to, introduced to, was a business agenda that included fascinating and powerful products. Tell me, when is the last time you introduced somebody to a business agenda with powerful products versus introducing people to powerful products? Period. You see the difference? If we don't get on the same page and communicate the same thing, where if I send somebody to your meeting, or you send somebody to my meeting, or we send somebody to a Zoom meeting, if they don't get the message that we're trying to talk about tonight, then their behavior is going to be always in alignment with whatever message they get. If you're trying to sell somebody a product, you may get a customer, but you're not going to get a leader. That's not going to happen in a billion years, because there's no infrastructure here that says if you're a customer, you could be a Royal Diamond. There's nothing that points them in this direction. No communication whatsoever that says that even matters, what it is, or that it even matters. So we have to create a flow of communication where no one gets left behind, because we recognize that we value customers. We should have a very quick understanding of where this person's at in this storyline and be able to identify them as a potential customer versus a potential business partner. We used to do that pretty good, but we need to do that again, keeping in mind that a person is a possible partner 100% of the time. Not half the time, not 10% of the time, 100% of the time, because you don't know what their life circumstances are until you find out, and you don't know what they want until you ask. And, you know, I was working as an electrician, long hair, ponytail. Who would have, aspiring musician, who would have ever thought that I would become a business person? But I was given the shot. I was given the opportunity to assess the situation, and it inspired me the way it did and caused me to act the way I did, and the rest is history. So if we present the right argument, the right opportunity, the right platform, then a person can self-select, and then we should know what to do with them. And like I said, given our new tools online and so forth, it should get a lot easier for us to be able to manage that and be able to streamline the process. I believe on my last call tonight, one of the gals said she spent this last few days learning how the new enrollment process works. That's a good idea. If you expect to enroll anybody, you probably ought to know how it works. So she spent some time in the back office looking at what's different, because now you don't need the bank information. So the idea then is, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
a couple of things with the question that Lynn brought up and what can we do? Part of the solution that we want to bring forth is got to take in what's going on in the world today, which is a little bit different. And, I was thinking about the sense of, remember when the iPhone first came out, how everybody, there was a little bit of an evolution, and then all of a sudden everybody wanted an iPhone, and it became the rage of the day. And now every year they come out with a new one, and people are buying them like crazy, and it's a $2 trillion company, and it's demand. So part of what we need to also figure out is, what are the needs and the wants and the desires of those in the marketplace that are best suited and have the idea that this could be for them? That's who we want to attract. And so, but the key to that is the support system. And then we've got some details that we have to work out with regard to the making of money and how money's made and what you can say and what you can't say, and all of those things that have to go in it. So from the standpoint of answering Lynn's question, what you can do to help support this idea is give us feedback of what's going on in the world and what you're running into and what people are interested in. And then from the standpoint of the tools and the systems, yes, I love the flip chart myself, Barbara. And I think that, but in today's modern technology, can we get it so it's on your phone and you can project it on the wall kind of technology? Because that's available. You see, and if we could use that kind of technology, then we got a wow factor. It's like when we used to run the magnets on your chest, and we'd have the indicator on the back, or vice versa, and you'd see the magnetic field, that light would light up, and it was like, wow, so it created there. Yeah, exactly. The wow factor. And the mag test of, standing on the mag steps and doing the strength test and all of that kind of stuff. Well, society has bombarded society with everything. You want to know something, you ask Alexa, or you ask, Siri, and you're going to get an answer. It's just that quick. I was singing a song and I said, two cats in the yard, life couldn't be that hard. Who is that? Who is that? Who is that? Siri, what song has two cats in the yard? And all of a sudden, it's Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and they're playing it, and there it is, just like that. Well, back in the day, I didn't have that. The information was at my door. The people wanted my information. So we've got to create an environment that causes people to want to come to our meetings because they're exciting, they're jam-packed, we've got success, and we can no longer not have success on the calls. We got to get back to, we've got to have success on the calls. We got to have people that are doing it. We got to have people that are engaged. We got to have people that are coming. I was talking to Vance Rogers today, and he said he was talking to one of his distributors. He said, I was just talking with, he said, I was just talking with Dave, and said, oh, yeah, Dave kicked me off his call years ago. And he said, well, why did he kick you off his call? And he said, well, I wasn't bringing anybody to the picnic. So he says, why are you on the call? Because this is a call to bring new people in who want to build the business. And so he said, well, did you do that? And she said, well, no. So, and I didn't kick her off, but I just mentioned that if you're not bringing people, why are you here? So we got to stop faking it. And we got to deal with, everybody needs to sleep. Everybody needs water. Everybody needs good nutrition. Everybody wants to look good. Everybody's trying to survive the best way they can. And we got to figure out sleep. I think that, this is my opinion, that should be the product. That's the demo pack. That's the career pack. It's a sleep system.
I sold 3 last month. Guys, I probably sell more sleep systems than anybody in Nikan.
There you go.
Because I love that product, and I know that it's the most impactful thing we've got. Water second.
We just have to think a little bit smarter. We got to get this going. And what we want is support. And it's got to be support everywhere. Because if we get the support, we'll put it together. We've got the track record. We've got the success.
Let me also mention, when you try and herd cats, because that's what it was like at the beginning. Remember, these are all kingdoms led by their own dukes and queens and kings, having their own self-worth and identity and whatever. try to bring them together. The only thing that made it work is they all realized how much easier it would be if we could sort of share the load. And that's what made it work. It was the realization that it was just easier that we could do this together and share the load, share the work, and it was then more fun. And all of a sudden, our events were the thing you wanted to be at because they were so much fun, because you got to hang out with the people you really liked hanging out with. So it's not drudgery, it's not work, it's what we wanted. And so it's really, what do you want? If you want to be part of something that matters, if you want to have fun, if you want to make a difference, and you want to be profitable, because what's the point if you're not profitable? Then this is your charity. I always tell people, Niken is not my charity, it's my business, but it allows me to be charitable because I've done well with it as a business.
So we want to have a business introduction night, and that would be the Tuesday night. And Michael and I want to be a part of leading that. We also want to have a leadership night where we talk about how to be a leader and what you have to do to build. We need a product training because we got to give the ability to communicate. That's a big part of it. But we got to kind of cull the list of everything else, because there's a lot of stuff that's redundant and is distracting. And here's the deal. If we can see, back in the day, we were focused. Monday morning was the kickoff call for the week, and then who's going silver. That was it. Who's going silver? And then it became who's going silver, who's going gold. And then it became who's going silver, who's going gold, who's going platinum. Then it became who's going silver, who's going gold, who's going platinum, who's going diamond. And then people would say, yes, that's me, put me on the board. And we'd have, writing people's names down. They were plugged in and playing the game. So we're missing that element. So all Michael and I did really was we looked at, well, what worked? What did we do? What did we have? What's not in play right now? What if we put it back? What do you think might happen? And we go from 50 to 100 million, then we go from 100 to 300 million, and then you get to create your legacies. And then you get to pass it on. Now, we're not expecting you guys, and I'm saying this sincerely, and a lot of people that have passed their prime and no longer need to do this and don't need the money and are just playing and enjoying the social aspect. But we're looking at for you guys to open the door to those that do want to play. But you need that support. You need that. It's just that simple. That's how it works. And if you had the support and you had the system and you had somebody and say, hey, there's a couple of guys that are multimillionaires. They're on the phone tonight. They're going to tell you how this business works. You want to plug in and see what this is all about. Guess what? You just equipped yourself with incredible ammunition. And that was what we had, the credibility and the confidence to go talk to somebody else. The mechanics are always the same. If you want to make money, you got to go sell the products. If you want to recruit build a big organization, you got to recruit distributors, and then you got to teach them how to do it, so on and so forth. But if you're doing it by yourself, it's really tough. But if you do it with a group, it's really easy.
And fun.
And it's a whole bunch of fun. I mean, it's just, I remember just a quick story about it. So we do a meeting in San Diego, and this is when we were this was the millionaires group. Didn't quite get to Team Diamond yet. And so I'm part of the stage and I get to talk, and my topic is the compensation plan and money. So I get up there and I make this spiel, and I think it was Diamond, it was maybe close to Diamond or whatever. And anyway, the audience loved what I said, got a standing ovation, et cetera, et cetera. And I come off the field and I talked to Al and I said, Al, they love me. You got to put me on the stage more. You got to get me up there. And he says, Dave, you want to get up there? Go to Royal Diamond. Then you can say whatever you want to say. And then I got to Royal Diamond. They cut the team down time to 15 minutes. The process. But it was the spirit of play that was so much fun. It was the spirit of play, because people were winning, people were enjoying themselves, people were having fun. There was games to be played, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm excited. I want to really kick this thing in the butt here. I'm
Yeah, so
tired of
I mean,
this.
I didn't come here with a call to action, but in terms of a call to action, so Dave's already mentioned that with respect to your experience in the field, what is getting people excited? Note it, even if it's just that MagStep demo, man, hits 100%. Whatever it is, we need to reformulate what it is that is so unique about us that it gets people to the party, gets people excited, at least to look at the next look. And then the next look is going to be the presentation that we put together that is excerpts of what we've got, but it'll be structured in a way that communicates that there is a real valuable opportunity here for those who want to play big, for those who want to play medium. You know, there's fast, there's slow, there's middle ground, whatever. The idea here is that there's something for everyone, and then showcase the success stories, showcase the success. That's critical. And so I really think it's important to note that there are companies just getting started in our industry. And I think it's a lot easier when you've got a smaller footprint to grow than it is when you've got a really large footprint and so much baggage. So it's those big companies, 500 million, whatever. It's hard. It's really hard for them to move. It's really hard for them to change anything. But we have an opportunity here that we can actually, we can be nimble and we can move quickly. So it's like if you're one person and you sponsor somebody, you've doubled your business, right? And that's a great success. I just doubled my business, even though it's just one person. So we're small enough that our wins can be significant and notable. And that's another advantage that we have with a smaller footprint to get this ball rolling.
And one more thing, as far as communication is concerned, it is important to understand what the challenges that you're running into are as well, because those things can be dealt with. We can deal with those if we understand what they are. If we don't hear anything, we don't know what's going on, we don't know what the roadblocks are, then it's hard to create a workaround or a solution or something to, you know, get rid of that kind of thought process or that kind of thing from handling. So if you got that, send the communication, either Michael or myself.
Yeah, I'm also going to suggest this call. It's a great opportunity for us to get that information rolled around. So I'd like to repurpose this call so it's a little bit more in alignment with what it is we need from everybody, which is real-time information, and mull it around. So please see this call as that. It's not an opportunity for me to pontificate. It's an opportunity for us right now to get this ball rolling, because it's going to be organic. It's a deadlift. It's going to be organic. We can move quick, and that's how we do it. But it's like, let's get your involvement and participation and input, and feel free to bring others as well if you think they're going to benefit from this. But the goal from this point forward, as far as I'm concerned, 50 to 100 million. So if you,
I'm going to forgo
Yeah.
my calls on Wednesday night and join up with Michael on Monday night.
all right, perfect. We'll repurpose this call altogether then. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a great start.
Yeah, because I want Wednesday night off anyway.
What's going on Wednesdays? Holy night?
Michael,
All right, yes.
may we use your next Monday call to sort of just continuation of this, because
Yeah,
our
we should
minds
have
are
some,
working.
yes, please. And we should have some information as well by then, as far as our
Yes.
conversation with Luis
So
tomorrow.
it's a continuation till
Yes.
we get somewhere. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
invite
good.
people to show up too.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
who do you know that wants to be part of a company, taking a company from 50 to 100 million and
Okay.
participating in the growth and the profits of that?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
See you next week.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.